Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I am your host for today's broadcast, Insanely Near 13, as we're preparing to get underway here for our 7th round of the IESC Multiclass season. We're starting to finally close everything down here after we're done with our first endurance race last week at Road America. Really had an interesting effect, shaking up some of the midfield and the points, but the top drivers have absolutely pulled away coming into today's event. We'll go over the points very shortly here. Alright, so real quickly as we go ahead and we pull up the point standings as they are right now, this is what it looks like. After the wins in the overall have been given to TMS Stingray and DPi, although he did not win the overall DPi category, that was a one-off, who's not running the rest of the season. LMP2 was given to LMR Critical, and GT was once into Scored Buffalo. This is what the championship points look like as they stand right now. In the Drivers' Championship, this is what it looks like for DPi. In 6th is Schumacher SF7. I have gotten to talk with him. He says that he anticipates that he will be recovered well enough that he will be able to start at least one of the remaining 3 races of the season, but he will not be running in today's event. In 5th is FCR Aspect with 43 points. 4th is Tact1cal Fall0ut. He has 51 points. 3rd is TMS Stingray with 77 points. 2nd is Prime 77 with 81 points. He is losing grip on the championship, and with the likelihood that he is not going to be starting today's race, this will probably take him out of serious championship contention. And then leading on top of the point standings is RZM Arsenal. Then we go ahead and look at the P2 championship as it is right now. 6th place is LMP TVR. He still only has 18 points. 5th is PSUK Brooksy with 21 points. 4th is LMP Grizz with 54 points. 3rd is Mr. Sunshine with 79 points. The good news for Mr. Sunshine, though, is that there's not a whole lot of Chevrolet DPi showing up today. He is looking like he can actually be ahead of Critical in today's event, and that's great news for him because second in the points right now is LMR Critical with 98 points, and leading is OTR Anonyms, but Anonyms is not currently anticipated to be able to run in today's event. Real quickly, now we look over the GT Championship as it stands right now. This is a bit of changes throughout the entire field. 14th is still VLR Effect with only 12 points. He did not complete the required race distance during the endurance event to actually score points in the end. 13th, Coco Gamer 11 with 12 points. Again, not anticipated to run anymore. DStream still sets 12th with 24 points. 11th is Tire Barrier with 32, which brings him into a tie with TFB Matter. They both have 32 points. Then it's a massive jump to the drivers who have actually been able to make consistent starts throughout the entire season. 9th is Prius Killer 8110. He missed out last week at Road America, but he's still riding relatively high off of his podium finish 2 weeks ago at Laguna Seca. He's just 1 point off of TTJ 111 in the Porsche. He has 121 points right now. Then in 7th is Rockmaro. He has 141 points. It's a big jump to the fight for 4th, 5th, and 6th overall. Ludicrous Speed is 6. He had a horrible run in the Ford GT. We know that the Ford GT was capable last week at Road America because his teammate, which was a one-off in the Ford GT, did bring them home to a podium spot in the second stint, but Ludicrous ran the first and third stint, was unable to complete those races. Then you go ahead and you look at 5th, currently RZM Brett, who has been losing ground significantly in the championship over the last few weeks. He has slipped down to 5th with only 195 points. 4th is now SRD Schreier with 205 points. That actually brings him within 30 points of 3rd place, Larry B. the G with 235 points. And then we get to your GT point championship contenders. 2nd is U5. He has 285 points at the moment, and leading is Scored Buffalo with 337. The most significant thing to look at, though, is that at the moment, Scored Buffalo, we do not know if he's going to be actually able to attend this race. U5 feels that he has the possibility to walk out of here with a win or at least a podium finish, and that would help close the gap down, but it would not likely be enough to get him ahead of Scored Buffalo unless Buffalo is unable to start and U5 wins. If that happens, then U5 would go back to the leading the points. Actually, it would be the first time that I think he leads the points the entire season, but it's currently unknown and a bit unlikely if that's actually going to happen or not. Still waiting on our last few drivers to properly rate up. Very small field in today's race. Only 12 drivers going to be going underway here at Watkins Glen. A lot of attendees last week, but a lot of them ended up dropping out today. Circumstances. Oh, and Scored Buffalo has finally actually joined. So Buffalo will be representing in the BMW. However, due to missing qualifying, he will have to start in the back of the grid for today's race. The good news for him, points are given out through a large chunk of the field, meaning that he will still have a chance to run and earn some points and potentially hold on to his points lead, however much it may shrink after today's race, because we do not know if Buffalo is going to be able to make his way from the back to the front, and we also do not know if Buffalo will even be able to stick around for the entirety of the race today. And here's the other thing to take a look at here. In DPi, Stingray and Arsenal, the two dominant drivers this entire season, these two have never been in the same race in one of these sprints. They weren't both running at the same time either in the DPi endurance race. Now, today, we finally get to see who's better, Stingray in the Ford or Arsenal in the Chevrolet. A lot of people do believe, and I'm one of them, that the Ford is the stronger car. Arsenal, though, is in the Chevy, and he has more wins on top of the season. Has been able to blitz the field even when he has absolutely no setup, no practice whatsoever. It's been fascinating to watch what Arsenal's been able to do. Arsenal currently leads in the championship. Stingray, though, closed up a bunch by winning and taking home as many challenges as possible earlier this season at Laguna Seca. Tact1cal Fall0ut is the only other driver in the DPi category. He's basically taking Dino Prime's place, interestingly enough. And with Tact1cal Fall0ut being there in third, there's now actually going to be a serious fight for third overall in the Drivers' Championship between teammates Dino Prime and Tact1cal Fall0ut. Those two have kind of gone back and forth with each other throughout most of the season. On track, Tact1cal has had the upper hand advantage over Dino Prime. However, Dino has the overall advantage by being able to attend more races up to this point. This is the first time that Dino is not showing up and Tact1cal is showing up. There are a few other drivers in DPi, but neither of them are showing up. Only two cars, again, in the LMP2 category. And Critical, one of the strongest drivers this entire season in P2, is not on pole in DPi. In LMP2, that is going to be Mr. Sunshine, who had a respectable but not ideal run and actually lost ground to his rivals in the championship last week. This may be his best chance to try and close the gap down on Anonyms, close the gap down on Critical, and try to make something happen going forward here. Oh. Please stand by for just a moment. All right, so official word that we're getting here is that this was going to be a short race today due to having a smaller than normal field. We're looking at only 13 drivers. Buffalo not anticipated to run the entire race length. So with that in mind, we are looking at a scenario where it will be a 1-hour race roughly. As we go ahead and pull up our counter right now. So a 1-hour race once the leaders hit the line. And once again, we want to give thanks to Icky1975, also known as Icy Jack, for continuing to serve pace car duties throughout the majority of this season. Even though his uses have not actually been required at any point this year, it's still nice to see him out there doing the work. All right, so from the last to the first, in the GT category, Scored Buffalo is going to be in 13th. He's just anticipated to run long enough to get last place points. Then he's going to be right behind TTJ111 in the Porsche. 11th is Prius Killer. Prius trying to capitalize off the great momentum that he began finding at Laguna Seca. Ahead of him is going to be Rock Morrow. Rock also trying to do more of the same. It's been going to be fun watching Prius, Rock, and TJ fight for their mid-GT championship points battle. Ludicrous Speed is there and is going to be starting 8th overall behind U5. U5, who critically missed out on the pole, and he needs to close, and he lost out on it to Brett. Brett, who is trying to get away from Shredder and Ludicrous Speed in their fight. Where is Shredder? Oh, Shredder has gone all the way to the back for some reason. I am not sure what the reason is there. Critical and Sunshine are the only two drivers in the LMP2 class. So they are teammates. Sunshine, though, is going to be starting ahead of Critical. This may be his best chance at taking home a win this season. And then we look real quickly at the 3 cars in DPi. Tact1cal Fall0ut is anticipated to not really bring home a whole lot of points overall, but he is now in a fight against his teammate Dino Prime. This will be a great chance for him to close in on that fight. And then at the front row, this is going to be where all the focus is going to be. Chevrolet versus Ford. We saw a lot of it last week where Ford obviously had the upper hand at Road America. Watkins Glen has a lot of setup characteristics that make it similar to Road America. However, Watkins Glen is not quite as straight line speed focused, it's a little bit more acceleration focused. It's anticipated that will give a small advantage to the Chevrolets in today's event. RZM Arsenal is going to be second, right behind Stingray. Arsenal trying to extend his points lead over Stingray. Stingray doesn't have a whole lot of challenges he can go after. He's used up most of his chances at nailing challenges down, but he'll still try to close the gap in any way possible to try and nick the DPi championship. So, Ford versus Chevy at the top of the grid. Although Stingray does have the BMW logo on, do not be distracted. That is at its core a Ford engine and a Ford DPi chassis. It's going to be 2 Chevys trying to chase him, then 2 Chevrolets in the LMP2 category, and then Chevrolet starting 1-2 as well in the GTs. So we could see this may not have a whole lot of on-track action overall, but we could end up seeing a lot of scenarios where it comes to changes in the points fight. However the points look coming out of this race, that will set the tone for the remaining 3 races of the season. As they begin to double up, again, the prototypes, the DPIs and P2s will all be on top of each other. There will be a gap between them and the GTs. And when the prototype leader hits the start-finish line, the 1-hour countdown will begin as they come down to the green flag. 1 hour of racing at Watkins Glen is underway here. And going off into the corner, Arsenal pulling the nose ahead, but Stingray has the inside line. Neck and neck, Stingray touches the inside curb. They're still side by side, a bit of contact coming out of the corner. Arsenal just barely pulling ahead of Stingray. Arsenal goes and puts his Chevrolet ahead of the Ford of Stingray as they come out of the S's now. Tact1cal Fall0ut back there in third, hasn't lost touch with them yet. The P2s already have completely fallen off. Watkins Glen does not really favor the P2s. There's not really any likelihood that the P2s are going to outrun the DPIs, especially the top DPIs. Oh, and both of the DPIs go off into the grass, and the bus stop chicane. Arsenal wide. Stingray is going to go ahead and scoop by without issue as they now go running down into the boot section. Through the top of the ankle, Arsenal seems to be struggling a little bit, maintaining rear grip under braking, and that seems to automatically give the advantage to Stingray at the moment. Stingray now starting to pull away from Arsenal as they come around the toe, and now up the underside of the boot. They'll be coming up to the heel here. Not an ideal passing opportunity up here. But you can gain a lot of time if you nail your corner as well here. Stingray seems to be a little bit neutral on corner exit, but doesn't seem to be letting that harm him that much as they come out of the boot section. Now back to the main bit of the track. Down to the last 2 corners, Stingray holds position over Arsenal, and for the moment, it looks like Stingray has the advantage over Arsenal right now. As we look down the grid, LMR Critical is currently ahead of Sunshine, but Sunshine is running right behind him in the draft as they come down to the line. Critical may have touched the outside wall there. Sunshine right behind him, but I don't know if he's going to be able to capitalize. Right behind, can't make the move into 1. And now we go ahead and turn our focus to the GT category. U5, who missed out on pole position though, is up in front. U5 needs to win this race to try and close the championship fight as much as he can because it is not anticipated that Scored Buffalo is going to run to the end. Brett is running second right now, and TJ has gone and taken his Porsche all the way up into 3rd position. He has the BMW of Scored Buffalo right behind him. How aggressively though is he going to keep that BMW behind? We've not seen a whole lot of strong performances from Porsche this season. TJ's not been bad by any means, but for most of the season, it's been Chevrolet versus BMW at the top of the grid. We've seen Ferrari get podiums. We saw Ferrari actually get the overall race win in the endurance race, but those were one-off efforts, and they do not count for the IESC GT championships. We've seen Ford get podiums. We've seen Dodge get podiums. Every manufacturer in this grid outside of Porsche has gotten a podium thus far this season. This could be TJ's best chance to do so. Here comes Lucas Speed on the outside, and he goes to the outside wall. Lucas Speed has now fallen all the way back to 12th position with that hiccup. Still ahead of Rockmaro for the moment. But TJ maintains third as Scored was on the outside. And Ludacris tried to go where there just simply wasn't any racing room as the two Chevrolets are starting to scoot away just a little bit. U5 leads Brett. Brett trying to get out of the fight between Shredder and Ludacris Speed for 5th overall in the championship. Also of note, your 3rd place driver, Larry B. the G, not showing up today. There's a possibility that Brett could end up bringing not only getting out of the fight for 5th, but might end up going back into a fight for 3rd overall. A very close fight right now in the GT category as TJ continues to hold station over Scored Buffalo. But meanwhile, at the front of the grid, Arsenal stalks Stingray. Chevrolet has better acceleration. In fact, it has the best acceleration by a massive amount. The Ford, though, is anticipated to have overall better handling. I can say as someone who has driven and helped to set up both cars for drivers throughout this series. I've worked a little bit with Dyno Prime and Tact1cal Fall0ut earlier in the season. Oh, and Stingray's off! Stingray's off, and Arsenal's gonna go by! And Arsenal takes his Chevrolet by! And that may be the case. Stingray is in the Ford. The Ford is believed to have more natural turning and handling ability. What that leads to happen, though, and both of the DPi drivers tap the outside wall. Here comes Stingray back as they come down the straights. And I think what we're seeing here is that the Ford setup, because it has a lot more natural turning ability, it really tempts the drivers within the Ford to go ahead, rip out as much downforce as they can, compromise, sacrifice on handling, because you're in the mindset of, well, I'm going to have more base handling, I should automatically be ahead of the Chevrolet. And then you can go ahead and counter the acceleration differential. The Ford is anticipated to overall have the similar top speed to the Chevrolet, but we only ever saw that once this season at Daytona, and the drivers who were in the Ford there weren't able to properly capitalize. So here, though, we're seeing a kind of a scenario where, Stingray goes wide. I think Stingray is starting to struggle just a bit. They may have taken a little bit too much handling out of that car. Arsenal, on the other hand, this is kind of been the setup he's been running this entire season, and that's one of the reasons why I believe we've seen such an incredibly tight battle. Finally, the two drivers who have been basically destroying every single race in the DPi category, the only exception being Daytona at the season opener in Long Beach in race 4, we finally get to see him have a proper fight at the top of the DPi category. No challenges, no gimmicks, two drivers represent two different cars at the top. This is peak racing situation here. Arsenal has a big twitch as they come out of the boot section. Stingray closing in just a little bit. Scored Buffalo has gotten ahead of TTJ, and Shredder has followed suit. Farther back, TJ has now fallen to 5th overall in the GT category, although he is still ahead of Lucas Speed and Prius Killer. TJ, Prius, Rock all trying to kind of gather points back. That's kind of the interesting main fight there. A little bit of a inner, like the midfield of the GT points battle right now. We don't really know who's going to come out on top right now. Rock had a really bad start, has fallen back, but he's already caught back up to the grid. He's likely to be able to start overtaking. Prius Killer is in a car that is very well suited to this track, except for the fact that, yeah, he's really well suited, but he's well suited to the more NASCAR sections. In the boot, Prius only really has one straightaway. He can take advantage of the Dodge Viper's great straight line speed abilities, and then behind him, ludicrous speed in the Ford GT the entire season. The story of the Ford GT has been frustration. They did take home a podium in the second stint at Road America's Endurance, but Lucas Speed has not been able to extract maximum performance from this car throughout the majority of the season. He does have a podium overall back at Sebring, although he was in contention for a second place finish overall until losing out on that in a fight with 2 laps to go in a race where Chevrolet took top 2 in all of the categories here. Ludacris would love to get back on the podium, try to vault himself ahead of SRD Shredder. But right now, that just does not look like it's happening. He is stuck behind Prius Killer, who is stuck behind TTJ, and TJ definitely doesn't have the same handling that Prius's Dodge has, but he has the speed enough to go ahead and keep that Dodge behind. Ludacris Speed trying to take an alternate line, going through the S's as they run nose to tail, 5th, 6th, and 7th in the GT category. Coming around the outside, here comes Ludacris Speed. You don't really see the 4GT going for overtaking maneuvers, going into the braking zone, but that's exactly what happens. Ludacris Speed sends the Ford ahead of the Dodge. He closes massively on the Porsche going through the bus stop chicane, but it seems like the Porsche may have enough downforce that he's able to do it. I think Ludacris Speed kind of been in this position all season long. They've ripped out as much downforce as they can to give him good straight line speed just for defense and for any shot at an attack back. He's right there. He's behind TJ. It's working great for him. But at the moment, it does not look like it. Someone may have just lagged out. Did the party die? Hello? No, that's Ludacris Speed! And the driver we were riding on board with is now dropped out! As the top 2 in the DPi category begin to close down the GT fight. All right, and coming to the party now is Ludacris Speed. Ludacris, go ahead and include your audio. I don't know about you. I am extremely angry at that. You were looking like you had a really great run going. You were cutting your way through the field, and then that bullcrap. What do you have to say from your perspective?
It's the same thing from last week, man. The game's just done. I'm in the process right now of uninstalling Forza Motorsport. I'm finished with this thing. It's been a 2-year train wreck. I mean, you've heard the stories where even people with the online or the download version of the game where the game just doesn't work anymore. That's what I'm getting. I don't know what the game's run into, but it's finished. So I'm done racing on this game. I'm just gonna wait for the next one.
All right, as we see the overtake for a lead in DPi and Arsenal fights back. All right, it's a shame to see us taken out. We are expecting the next game to come out in about 6 months. We are anticipating you to be able to run in Forza Motorsport 8, though, right?
It's literally only this game, too. All my other games on this console run perfectly fine, no issues. It's just this one. So, that's it. I've just finished unstalling it. I'm done.
All right. Well, shame to see it's gone on like
no,
this, but
it's the download version, Chris. I've got Chris in the other party. Sorry, it's the download version. It's done.
By the way, thanks for jumping in and talking with us.
That's a shame.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will be it from Ludacris Speed for the rest of the season. Then, and that will pretty much give the advantage to SRD Shredder in their fight for 5th, potentially 4th overall for GT points. And now for a lot of the drivers farther down the GT field, they may have a chance to close in. But while we're in the middle of that conversation, you saw on screen Stingray get by Arsenal as Arsenal struggled to navigate his way through DPi traffic. They were 3 wide going into turn 2, trying to overtake GT cars at one point. So incredible, incredible stuff going on right now, though. Oh, Arsenal! Through the dirt just a bit. The old Ray's trying to close back in on Stingray. Arsenal off into the dirt just a bit. Now the gap opens up a bit more between the top 2. But now we go ahead and look at one other thing that's going to come into play. Again, DPIs now, are they still going to have to make 3 mandatory stops or not? We don't know, but we do know right now the Chevrolet in second has gone through 50% of his fuel. The Ford, who is leading right now, 47%. So Stingray is going through fuel a little bit faster than the Chevrolet at the moment. Tact1cal Fall0ut has completed his navigation of the GT category. Scored Buffalo has already gone up to the front in GT. RZM, Brett, and U5, two biddies fighting with each other, and Buffalo smashes the outside wall. Buffalo, we don't know if he's going to be able to make it through this entire race or not. This fight between the Chevrolets, we don't know if it's going to be a fight for second or a fight for third overall. But U5, once again, seeing Buffalo right ahead of him, which has been the frustrating thing throughout the majority of the season. He's only finished ahead of Buffalo twice. Once at Long Beach, and that only came off the back of the BMW getting wrecked in the final 3 laps of that race. And then once at Sebring, where Buffalo signed up for a bunch of challenges and was not able to complete them to the end of this event. As we ride on board with Brett, U5 looking to the outside of Buffalo as they go now into the bus stop chicane. Big slide from U5. Oh, and big twitch. Very nearly lost it there. Buffalo's wide. U5 closes back in, but Buffalo in the BMW seems to be way stronger. U5 can't seem to do anything to take the fight to him. Buffalo's gone from last to first with no qualifying, basically no practice. Oh, and U5, another big slide, big twitch, and he's off, and he has lost his position now to Brett. So now it's Brett's turn. Can he do anything to Buffalo? I don't think so. U5 is kind of running out of ideas, keeps running to the dirt, and that seems to be the big thing that's costing him. In the P2 fight, though, this is where things get a little bit interesting. Critical made his pit stop already. 58% fuel. So Critical has not made his pit stop yet, and Sunshine has gotten back ahead of Critical on track. And Sunshine is not only ahead of Critical, he is way ahead of Critical. This could be great news for Sunshine, who started this race on pole position, lost the top spot early, but is now taken back the lead and opened up the gap. I'm not really focused on the P2 battle because I'm so used to Critical. Once he gets the lead and Sunshine loses it, the gap opens up, but that's not been the case today. Stingray holds position still over Arsenal at the moment. Here's an interesting fight for fourth right now in the GT category. That's the Ferrari of Rockmaro right there behind Shredder, taking as much of an alternate line as they can through the bus stop chicane. Rockmaro lets the P2 by without issue. Shredder actually gets run a little bit off the ideal racing line coming out of the carousel. This is Rockmaro coming by. He looks to the outside. Track's really flat there, though. You can't really make it stick. Shredder's going to hold that position over Rock for the moment. But Rock, along with Brett, are now fighting to potentially close their gap on Larry B. the G for third overall in GT points. And with ludicrous speed, I believe he's going to hold to his word and not going to make another start for the rest of the season. That means that Rock may have a chance to close in that fight as well. Big twitch, big slide from Shredder there. Rock coming back around the outside. The Ferrari seems to be this Ferrari seems more adept than this BMW at the moment, nose to tail. At the front of GT, though, scored Buffalo. Let Critical by. And now it will be clean track ahead because Brett and U5 have fallen off of him significantly. This is the primary fight in GT. Shredder in fourth, trying to keep Rockmaro in fifth behind him. Sixth is Prius Killer. Seventh is TJ. This is the other fight of note. And I should not have turned away because the moment I turned away, this fight became side by side and Rock into the grass. Likely to avoid hitting Shredder, but now that gap has fallen away. If I knew that was going to happen, I would not have swapped cameras. Fight for 6th and 7th in GT. TJ over Prius Killer. TJ got his way up into the podium positions, but then fell rapidly afterwards and has not been able to make his way back through the grid since. Prius not really capitalizing off of his Laguna success on the same level that he wanted to. And it does look like that Porsche at the moment has a better drive going down the straights. So we're going to go ahead and do something that we've done every race this season. We're going to go ahead and spin a lap on board silently with Arsenal, who's currently in second position. Watch as he tries to run down Stingray here around Watkins Glen. And that's a full lap on board with second place in DPi. Arsenal still running within Stingray's tire tracks. You can see them all the way around the track, but has not been able to get ahead. There is one potential advantage that Arsenal may have, though. When it comes to fuel numbers, he is ahead of Stingray. And in LMP2, the fight has closed in once again. Critical once more behind Sunshine, nose to tail. Sunshine actually seems to be better off than Critical right now when it comes to fuel wear. Enough that it might be enough to give Sunshine one extra lap of fuel, so they may not have to stop at the exact same time. But Critical running right behind Sunshine at the moment, looking behind. Where does he make the move? Does he even try to make the move here? Not through one. And that's one of the things about P2. P2, all the cars are on the same playing field there. It just comes down to who's the better driver, who's the better setup. You can't go ahead and say, like it is in DPi or GT, oh, well, one car is better than my car is better than yours. No, it's 100% setup and driver ability. Critical to the inside of Sunshine coming out of the S's, and now Critical back by, but we do seem to have a legit fight for overall LMP2 victory here. That's something else we've not seen very much here, but that's not really been too much of an issue thus far because a lot of the races where we've had 3 or more drivers in P2, there's normally been a good fight for second. This is the first time we've only had 2 people in the LMP2 category, and they've been fighting each other on actual merit. At Sebring, we had 2 fighting in the P2 category, but the man who ended up winning had taken a massive set of challenges early on, was basically trying to run back from an extra pit stop in the end. He did get it, but it was decided not on the track driver versus driver, but contact between an LMP2 driver and a GT car kind of settled that fight early. But at the moment now, Critical has pulled ahead of Sunshine on track. Buffalo continues to lead in the GT category, but the question continues to be, will he be able to run to the end of today's race? Again, he was not anticipated to run the entire race, but the race length has been shortened due to having the smaller, reduced field size. So Scored Buffalo may have a chance to still be able to run the entire distance today. And with the pace he has pulled out on the Chevrolet GTs, it is looking depressingly likely that if he stays around, he will not only add but massively extend his championship fight, because U5, who had started second behind Brett, got ahead of him, led some laps, and after Buffalo got by, and Stingray and Arsenal are in another fight for the top positions. And that's because they are both pitting. Not quite halfway through the race, and our DPi leaders are pitting. So does Stingray or Arsenal have an advantage over the other? It looks like Stingray is ahead of Arsenal, coming down to it. They're going to come out on track in the middle of GT traffic. Tact1cal Fall0ut in third, also pitting this lap. But yes, it does look like Stingray has the advantage maintained coming in and coming out of the pits. Arsenal a full second behind. Rockmaro's going to kind of compromise both of the DPIs here. Arsenal a little bit less than Stingray. But it looks like Stingray has it for now, and Arsenal has lost time to the Ford at the top. Critical now goes into third overall, but Tact1cal Fall0ut is just a little bit behind him. We're anticipating Tact1cal will go back into third overall very shortly. Again, Watkins Glen, very similar to Road American in a lot of specs, and there was realistically no LMP2 drivers that are outpacing DPIs that ran to the end of the races there. Most of the battles on track have pretty much deteriorated. Of note, though, U5 continues to run within a second of his teammate, RZM Brett, on track, while Buffalo has kind of stopped pulling away. I think he's just pacing himself at this stage in the event. That's the DPIs cutting their way now through the GT lead fight. Navigating traffic this time around seemed to work out better for Arsenal than Stingray. He has now brought his Chevrolet right back in line behind your DPi category leader again. I wonder if Arsenal may have a lot less downforce on the rear end, and that's causing him to kind of deal with some issues with the rear end, kind of smoking up under braking, and then the car also seems a little bit sideways on corner exit, but nothing like Stingray's though. Both these cars, they're absolutely being pushed to their limits. I can only make assumptions, and I will fully admit that as much as I've raced and as much as I've watched racing, I've made assumptions on what happened on track, and that's not actually what the drivers are struggling with. But to me, it looks like Stingray has trimmed that car out for straight line speed, and he is suffering a little bit in handling because of that, and it's also compromising his ability to navigate through traffic in the corners. Arsenal is just kind of a bit better overall balanced, Both DPIs again go through the grass, but Stingray opens up the gap on Arsenal. Arsenal seems to be a bit better balanced overall, but I do think the Ford is an overall better car. It's just the Ford's a little bit on the worse foot than the Chevrolet. Oh, Stingray really wide there. Did he drop a tire into the grass? Well, if he did, Arsenal and Stingray continue to take slightly alternate lines. Arsenal doesn't want to be caught in the aerodynamic wake of Stingray coming out of these corners and deal with the aero wake, upsetting the air, going over the nose of the car. He looks to the inside, going into the heel, will not commit to it. The heel's not really an ideal place to go side by side at. Yes, the track is really wide, and there's lots of runoff there, but there's really only one ideal line. If you get off that line, it's not going to work. But Arsenal is bringing the fight to Stingray in a way that we have not seen thus far today. One other difference between these cars, Arsenal in the Chevrolet, that is a naturally aspirated V8. The Ford is turbo powered, and the turbo lag is extremely noticeable. Also, the Ford does have a slight decrease in its overall power for the BOP for these two manufacturers. So as it goes down, that's where the main area comes down to how the Chevrolet is anticipated to have better straight line speed. There's no worry about the turbo lag here at all. For the Chevrolet, he just puts the power down. The power is right there available to him. And did someone else just lag out? Oh, and TJ! No! And this will massively hurt TJ's attempts to close in any capacity. Stingray now starting to open up the gap again on Arsenal. Tact1cal Fall0ut is still fourth. He has not been able to overtake Critical on track yet. Again, DPIs are supposed to run an extra pit stop compared to the LMP2s. So Tact still trying to overcome that issue. Critical has well pulled away from Sunshine thus far in the event, though, as we see our P2 category leader coming out of the boot section. Now he brings himself down into the fray for the GT overall lead. We'll go ahead and ride on board silently for the P2 leader for a lap here at Watkins Glen. Well, so much for a full lap, but it was close enough as our DPi category, our LMP2 category leader comes into the pits, and he will be joined by our GT leader as Scored Buffalo has dropped out of the event. So now is going to be a fight between the GT category drivers. U5, though, even with the win, I don't think he's going to close nearly as much because TJ and Lou... Excuse me. Talking way too fast there. The BMW of Buffalo ended up not being the first driver to drop out. The Ford GT and the Porsche of Lucas and TTJ respectively both dropped out behind him. So Buffalo will still score up a decent amount of points in today's event. Sunshine coming down to it. Yeah, Sunshine actually made his stop earlier, so Sunshine making his stop earlier, anticipating that his ability to manage his fuel better will work out well in his favor going forward. And at the front, Stingray continues to lead over Arsenal. It has been a respectable fight, but Stingray has seemingly had the upper hand for the majority of the race. Not been an easy upper hand by any means. Because the moment Stingray's made a mistake, any mistake, Arsenal is immediately there, putting pressure on the Ford. And Stingray seems to be a little bit worse than Arsenal, usually navigating his way through traffic. And that has been one of the main areas that Arsenal has been able to close at. But as I said, that Arsenal off into the dirt back there and will lose even more time. Only 10 drivers left on track at this stage in the event, so with the rapidly dwindling number of cars in today's race, that will serve more and more in Stingray's favor. That means there's less traffic he has to deal with. He comes up on Rockmore. Rock cuts down, makes a little bit of contact. Arsenal steaming up, but not close enough to do anything because he now has to deal with the same Ferrari in the very next corner. Stingray to the outside wall, Arsenal right behind him. Arsenal not able to get close enough to Stingray to make anything happen, though. Straight here does benefit Arsenal. He can get the draft off of that 4. You can see him closing down the straight. But under braking, the advantage is anticipated to go back to Stingray. Both cars go through the dirt again. Arsenal extending the exit of the carousel, almost NASCAR style, trying to get more speed coming out of the corner. Again, Arsenal, he gets right there behind Stingray in his draft, and then you start seeing him drop tires off into the grass in various parts. Not that time, though. Stingray actually had to deal with a bit of overcorrection. But I think he's far enough ahead of Arsenal that Arsenal couldn't close in as much via the draft. As they come through the heel of the boot this time, Stingray has the position over Arsenal. So now, overall, is once again Chevys and BMWs at front, but it is Shredder who has yet to put his car on the podium. He is now running third ahead of his next closest competitor, Rockmaro, and then Prius Killer is it. That's it. There's only 5 drivers left overall in the GT field. That's where all of our dropouts have been thus far. And Shredder poised to walk out here third in the BMW. And this will most definitely pull him ahead, easily break him away from that fight against Lucas Speed. We do not believe Lucas is going to run any more races this season. I would like to see him run more, but it does not look like that's going to happen. He's going to pull ahead of... he's not going to pull on Brett any. Brett's still looking to come home second. But he'll also close on Larry B. the G for third overall as well. So, the GT points fight going to get really interesting from third on back. Buffalo still anticipated to walk out here with the points lead, but will be massively dwindled after missing qualifying, so he couldn't even fight for the point for pole position. That ended up going in Brett's favor, so U5 didn't really get that, take that advantage either. And then U5, it looks like he's going to walk out here with the lead, but at the moment, Buffalo is still going to be scored 6th place points overall. So right now, the fight at the top of DPi continues to be the only one really worth watching on the track. You can see Arsenal really likes to extend the track anywhere that he is allowed to. The big benefit of doing such a strategy is that it gives Arsenal more straightaway so he can rely a little bit more on the overall acceleration. He's betting that the acceleration that the Chevy has is enough to counter the loss of time of taking the longer way through. Goes through the grass again, but he's again close right up on Stingray. So the fight for overall DPi win continues to wage on. This is the most intense fight we've actually had on merit, driver versus driver this season. Again, Long Beach had some really good fights going on through it. Arsenal did take home the win, but Arsenal really struggling to lap DPi drivers in that event. Now we see Arsenal struggling in a different way, and that's trying to get ahead and stay ahead of Stingray on track. They are coming up on GT traffic again, though, and that may work in Arsenal's favor, but he needs to be there close enough to capitalize if Stingray finds his lines compromised. Oh, Stingray drops the tire into the grass again. That's the second or third time I see him do that. But Arsenal's done almost just as much. So both of the DPi drivers making lots of small mistakes. They've all kind of added up to where they basically neutralize each other out. Lock up there from Arsenal going in to turn one, and now Stingray and Arsenal both take a more middling line, not really laying on the strength of either car. So now we see Stingray trying to pull the gap out from Arsenal. So whenever Arsenal is running an alternate line, he seems to close just a bit, but whenever he runs behind Stingray, it falls off. I don't know if that's because of aero weight kind of compromises that DPi. Ooh, that was a really, really bad run to the bus stop, out of the bus stop and into the carousel. Now this time, Stingray's the one who extends, and Arsenal takes the straighter line. Arsenal locks up under braking. Here they're coming up on GT traffic. Arsenal is close enough. Is Stingray going to be compromised by that dodge? Coming out, Stingray most definitely compromised. Arsenal compromised as well. He's right there behind them in the draft again, but they're a long ways away from more GT traffic. He's right on the rear bumper. Stingray runs a little bit wider than Arsenal. Arsenal right in an alternate line. You gotta be really careful here. That corner has inverse banking, or known as native camber. So running wide through there, you're more likely gonna lose time than anything else. But Arsenal stays behind Stingray again, and here they come up on more GT traffic into the final corner. That's the Ferrari again that gave Stingray issues earlier. Arsenal still running right behind him. They'll both probably get by him in the braking zone without too much issue. Yes! It'll just barely work out, but it won't compromise either of them too much. Arsenal runs wide again. Here they come up on third place overall in GT. That's Shredder, as they're going to catch him on the straight, so they won't have to worry about him in the bus stop chicane. Shredder actually moves off the racing line, not to compromise the DPi fight. Down the main straightaway to the bus stop chicane again. Arsenal behind Stingray. Ford versus Chevy. Who's got the advantage coming out this time? I think it's Arsenal, but Arsenal kills that advantage. Running wide into the bus stop again. Stingray runs wide on exit. Arsenal has a straighter line now. Again, they go into the boot section. Nose to tail, Arsenal, Stingray both trying to take alternate lines, do anything they can to try and negate the advantages of the other's car. I believe Stingray, we're seeing the big reason why he's extending now is to try and cause enough aero weight to kill Arsenal on the exit of these corners, so he has to end up, sacrificing the acceleration to get off the throttle or be a lot more aggressive with burning up the tires and turning the car through the corners. They still have two more cars to catch, and those will be the Chevy GTs who lead right now of U5 and Brett. Arsenal now seems to fall off of Stingray just a bit. GT traffic, they'll overtake that yellow Chevrolet without issue going down the straight. Brett lets both of them by. But they are going to catch the leader. Oh, Stingray really got held up by U5 there. U5 gives the inside line to Arsenal, though. So Arsenal now closes the gap back down a bit. But it's going to be clean track ahead for a long time. The next car ahead of these two is the other DPi, Tact1cal Fall0ut, who's lapping about 3 seconds slower than these two. But I don't know if Tac is going to be caught by them before race end. Real quickly, as I look at the clock again, this will be a 1-hour race. And we are in the last 18 minutes right now. Ooh, into the dirt for Arsenal. It's really not going to help him out there. Also killed his proper entry line to the final corner. Stingray drops tires into the grass on exit. Stingray right ahead of Arsenal. Running uphill. Arsenal touches the outside wall, but he's right there behind Stingray. He's got a great run down the straight overall. Into the braking zone again. Oh, that was horrible. That may have killed it for him. That might be it. That may have decided the race. Unless Stingray makes a similar massive mistake. I don't know. Arsenal's already closed back in. Stingray has the advantage, but Arsenal's already halved all the time that he lost. Again, this has been the main fight to watch. Critical has pulled well ahead of Sunshine now. But both Critical and Sunshine will close on Anonyms in the LMP2 driver's points, as Anonyms not able to run in today's race. This continues to be the fight to watch. Arsenal versus Stingray. %9 fuel for Stingray. Arsenal 14%. So again, Arsenal has the advantage in fuel, but both these drivers will have to pit before race is over. So would Arsenal have an advantage staying out an extra lap, not dealing with the aero wake of Stingray potentially? The aero wake of Stingray. Again into the grass. He's close enough though to get the draft off the Ford and kind of neutralize that disadvantage. I think Stingray has really come to grips with the car, and while Arsenal hasn't dropped off massively from Stingray, Stingray's mistakes and hiccups have been significantly less as this race has gone on. Arsenal seems to be making about the same amount, though, and that's the main reason why we've not been able to see the top two properly get side by side. So, when will our top two pit? And there's Stingray pitting now, so Arsenal stays out a lap. So Arsenal needs to put together a fantastic in and out lap. Watch the gap between first and second. That's going to be where the important thing comes down to. Of note, farther down, U5 leads over Brett by only 0.4 of a second. Oh, Arsenal! A massive mistake! That may just give it to Stingray, because Arsenal has just made a humongous mistake on his end lap. Anyhow, he doesn't have a DPi to get the draft off of to try and counter that. I don't know. Arsenal may have just given away the race win. Right now, he is 41.8 seconds ahead of Stingray on track. Stingray trying to warm his tires up as quickly as possible. Stingray dealing with some lap trap with LMP2 traffic, though. That could end up costing him as he's caught behind Critical. Not to the same amount, but this is definitely going to cost him a little bit of time. He won't be able to close an Arsenal at the rate that he wants to. Running behind the leader in LMP2. Can't make a run into the toe of the boot. He'll outrun him through here, but Stingray has just lost a bunch of time dealing with LMP2 traffic. And Arsenal in the pits. So can Stingray get back ahead of Arsenal? They both had mistakes on that lap. Arsenal already making his way down the pit lane. But Stingray is now coming out of the boot section to the last two corners. It's a very long pit lane here. It takes a lot of time to properly navigate. Stingray already out of the foul corner, touches the outside wall. You can see how quickly the gap is falling. Arsenal coming around the final corner, about to come out. Pit lane exit. Will he be ahead? Out of first corner to the line. Arsenal is ahead. Stingray gets back by him. They're right back where they were before. In fact, if anything, it's gone in Stingray's favor because Arsenal needs to get his tires warmed up. Stingray is going to end up extending his lead over Arsenal after Arsenal made a humongous mistake on his end lap and killed his run. That may have decided the fight, but there's one more fight that's not over yet. That is the fight for GT. U5 leads Brett. And this is where things come down to it. We don't know if there's going to be team orders in the Chevrolet camp. U5 has not been as strong as Brett throughout the majority of the day. They're far away from everyone else, but in the official series Discord, there was a brief public talk between the two of them. Brett was in favor of giving U5 the win to help him close down the points. U5 was not in favor of that. I don't know if he's going to feel that way now, knowing that he's not going to close by full race worth of points. I really think that they should go ahead in the Chevrolet camp and keep Brett behind U5. They're far enough ahead of SRD Shredder that, yeah, Shredder is 21 seconds out. He's not going to fight with these two. I don't think they should be fighting with each other, and they should let U5 hold the position. But we're going to ride on board for a lap on board with Brett silently, so you get an idea what it's like in the GT car, and see if he's actually laying out to keep U5 in the top position as we go silent for a lap here around Watkins Glen. So Brett continues to run in line behind U5. And it does not appear to me that he is pushing to overtake his teammate. It looks like it'll be Chevrolet 1-2 in GT. Critical, 24 seconds ahead of Sunshine. Is likely going to likely going to close massively on Anonyms. And we will have a serious fight for the remaining 3 races of the season in P2 that will come down just to attendance, more than likely. Tact1cal Fall0ut, a minute and a half off of our leaders. He is a lap down. Arsenal has fallen for the first time in the final half of this race, has fallen more than a second out of Stingray on the clock. Stingray overall seems to have made fewer mistakes in the final bits of the race. Not saying it's been perfect or anything, but he has made fewer mistakes. And the reduced amount of traffic has also meant that he doesn't have to worry about sacrificing his lines nearly as much. And Stingray has now extended the gap on Arsenal to 1.3 seconds. It was at 1.5 at one point, but Arsenal has closed down by about 2/10. Arsenal no longer close enough to stay in Stingray's draft. And it's been a close fight throughout the majority of the day, but Stingray looks like he's going to come out here on top. And that's Rockmar who goes completely off circuit there. And that's Prius Killer who's actually going to capitalize. So we may have a last-minute fight for GT final position of the running drivers, as Rock has a horrible run out of the bus stop chicane, and now Prius is there behind him. And mind you, we're in the closing minutes of this race. As I look at the clock, again, this is only an hour race instead of an hour and a half race. As I look at the clock, it says 6 minutes, 10 seconds, and all of a sudden, Rock and Prius are in a legit fight for a position. And mind you, these two are fighting for actual points amongst each other. These two are fighting with each other overall. And if Rock can close in, if Prius can get ahead of Rock, this would be great for him. Granted, he's last of the GT drivers, but he's still running 5th overall. It's not ideal, but this has been a respectable capitalization off of what Prius pulled off 2 weeks ago at Laguna. You can hear him, he's right behind the Ferrari. Onto the main straight. 5.5 minutes left. Despite having a small field, this has actually been a very interesting race, but I do have to wonder if that's because it's been shortened, so because of that, we're seeing what we normally see over the course of 90 minutes kind of compressed down to 1 hour. Rock now starting to pull the gap open again on Prius, now back to over a second. So it looks like this is kind of falling apart as Critical, who's caught up behind the GT traffic, with Critical far enough ahead of Sunshine right now. Shouldn't matter too much. Rock not the happiest with the Ferrari in the bus stop chicane. Prius closes in just a bit. Now he's back within a second. Oh, Prius into the outside wall. That may have killed his momentum. Again, I look at the clock. This is the most active fight on track. Now that the DPi and GT category wins seem to be pretty much decided. 4th and 5th place points in GT. This will be a massive points windfall for both of them, but Prius would love to extend to get even more and actually close on Rock if he can just finish ahead of him here. Less than 3.5 minutes left in this race. Rock continues to hold position over Prius, but the gap is less than a second at the moment. And this is for 4th and 5th place points in GT. A great points day for both of these drivers. Rock ahead of Prius, going down the straight. And at this point, we are looking at less than 2 minutes left. So this will likely be the last lap for these two in the GT category. Leaders at the moment, though. Stingray, who is now 2 seconds ahead of Arsenal, started on the pole, but the first half of this race was a spirited fight between himself and Arsenal. But as this race went on, Stingray minimized and reduced his mistakes. Arsenal kind of kept making the same amount. Still put up a great fight. And Stingray is going to win, but it looks like Arsenal may actually be kind of pulling off and backing down now that he knows that he can't catch Stingray. Now he's just trying to, kind of shore things up. But as the leaders cross the line, it will be 1 minute 1 minute and 10 seconds left, actually, as Stingray crosses the line. So this will be the last lap for our DPi leaders. For LMP2, Critical coming up, and he will be taking the white flag here shortly as well. He'll be taking it with way less than a minute left. Yeah, he'll take it with 40 seconds left. And for their top two, U5 continues to hold station over Brett. Brett not pushing to try and get by his teammate. It'll be another Chevrolet 1-2, just like what we saw at both Long Beach and Sebring. At Long Beach, it was U5 ahead of Brett. At Long Beach, it was Brett ahead of U5. At Sebring, it was U5 ahead of Brett. So 3 1-2 finishes for the GT cars thus far this season. At the rate they're going, because there it is, time is up. So this is it. Race pretty much over now. So as long as no one makes any silly mistakes in these closing moments, this will be it. As they come to the end, Stingray across the line. So one more lap. So I was wrong, I miscounted. So they will get one more lap in. This will be the actual final lap. LMP2 leader is going to pretty much cross the line right ahead of the GT category leaders. And the that's your lead battle in GT right now. Now, as I say battle, again, I don't know if Brett's actually going to try and make a move on U5 here at the end. Brett said that he was in favor of staying behind U5, but I don't know if he's going to maintain that mindset here. Critical backs way out of it so he doesn't compromise the leaders here in the bus stop. Again, lighter car, a lot more aerodynamics, a lot more nimbler, and he will overtake them both without issue. Stingray out of the final corner will go ahead, cross the line, and will bring home the third victory. Fourth, if you want to count endurance. For Ford thus far this season. Arsenal will come home second. Third place overall will be Tact1cal Fall0ut, who does finish a lap down compared to them. Critical will bring home a victory in P2 again, and will massively continue to close his gap on OTR Anonyms in the points fight. And at the front of the GT, neck and neck, as the Chevrolets of U5 and RZM Bet cross the line, and U5 will close as much as he possibly can in the GT Championship fight, and Brett will try to put himself back ahead of Larry B the G as well. And the fight for the last positions in GT, Rock in the end about 2 seconds ahead of Prius Killer, but both of them will still bring home a solid day, and credit to Shredder, who will come home third in the GT category as well. All right. And coming into the party, we're going to try and talk with our top 2 finishers in all of our categories here. First, we're going to real quickly start off with our GT category drivers. Starting at the top, U5, go ahead, include your audio. Second victory on the season. What do you have to say about your run today?
Very sketchy to start out. Car was really on edge, especially through the bus stop, and then just having Brett and Buffalo there just made it quite more interesting.
All right, well, you did in the end come home. Was it team orders that gave you the win, or were you actually holding off Brett on merit at the end there?
I was holding him off. I would get him on a lap, and then he'd get it back on the next. I was just managing the gap at that point.
Okay, well, in the end, you finished first, while Scored Buffalo will be credited with 6th place points overall. While you won't walk out of here with the lead in the points, you close up the championship gap significantly here. 3 more races left. Do you think you still have a shot at this championship?
We'll see how next week goes.
All right, I appreciate your honesty. Real quickly, I want to talk with 2nd place finisher in GT, RZM Brett. Brett, go ahead, include your audio. 2nd place, you started on the pole. Are you satisfied with your result or what?
Yeah, pretty satisfied.
Brett, there you are.
Yeah. I didn't get a great start. U5 got the advantage. Off the start, he had a little more straight line speed than me and won the battle into T1, and then kind of just controlled the first stint. And then towards the end, I drew up close to him, but really didn't have enough to get by, and then we did a nice little side-by-side finish for the pictures and all that, so it was pretty cool.
Okay, so you've not brought home very many points recently, so you've fallen out of the championship fight. However, with Larry B the G not showing up, 3rd place in points. Once again, the fight, it looks like it's going to be between you, Larry B, and Shredder for 3rd in GT points. Do you think you have the ability to come up ahead of those 2 at season end?
Yeah, definitely. I think I got a pretty large pace advantage over them, and as long as I just keep attending the races, I'll be able to beat them out. Not too worried about it. So.
All right, well, great job. And once again, for the 3rd time this season, it will be a Chevrolet 1-2 finish in GT cars. Great job, boys, and continuing to show off Chevrolet. One other driver who is in the Chevrolet but didn't come home with quite the victory, though, is Arsenal, who comes home 2nd, and he will be behind Stingray. Arsenal, Stingray, both go ahead and include your audio. I'm just going to go ahead and say this. It's been 7 races, 6 if you don't count the Enduros, but we finally see a proper fight of Ford versus Chevrolet at the top of the field. No gimmicks, no weird challenges, nothing. Finally, driver versus driver in different machinery, squeezing out everything, and I've got to say, that was some of the best racing we've had all season. What do you two have to say about your day today?
I mean, that was race, but one could have won.
Yeah, I think it was just a fantastic race. I mean, he got the jump on me in the start, and I thought it was going to be over. To be fair, I thought he'd have more pace than me, but I was surprised myself throughout the race. But it was just GTs played a part as well, overtaking them. That was some interesting situations arose out of that. But yeah, I'm happy with the win. The pace in the car was good at the end, and yeah, after the second stop, there was a bit more of a gap, and I was a bit more comfortable. But yeah, great race, and yeah, like Arsenal says, anyone could have won that, and congrats to him.
All right, it seemed to me at least the big deciding factor was both of you drivers had really, really poor outlap. Well, for Arsenal, it was a poor in-lap. For Stingray, it was a poor outlap. On the final pit stop, is there anything you two could have done differently in that final scenario there on your final pit stops?
To be honest, for me,
Yeah, I don't remember having any issues.
it was really just race was decided.
There's a lot of pinch
All right.
points around this track.
Yeah, I definitely saw both of you drivers get pinched a lot of times by by GTs and even by P2s occasionally. Excuse me. One more question though, for both of you. Championship fight, Drivers' Championship. Arsenal, you come into this race with the championship lead. You'll still have it over Stingray. Dino Prime, via missing this race, is pretty much out of it by default. So it's going to come down to you two and attendance. Which of you two do you think has the advantage going to the remaining 3 races of the season?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be missing any of them. So I think it just comes down to how many Arsenal can attend, and yeah, I mean I'll keep trying to claw the points back, but it's gonna be a long way to go if he can make all the races.
All right, well, great job on you two. It's going to be fun to watch you two bring this fight down to the end. I do want to say thank you very much for talking with us. Fantastic drive that you both put in. Definitely the best race we've had in the DPi category all season long, and I hope we can see this replicated for the remaining races of the season as well.
Thank you.
All right, and that will pretty much wrap up our broadcast here from Watkins Glen. Small field, short race, but still absolutely impressive. Probably one of the best races we've had all season. Major championship implications in all 3 categories, and with 3 rounds left, including one more endurance round that will be at Road Atlanta later on the season, anything can happen. But until next week, I've been your host, Insane Leader 13 for the IESC Multiclass. Later tonight, I'll be broadcasting the next race, which will be same as this. It will be the 7th race of the NASCAR Apex Series, so you can catch that. And then Apex F1 season finale at Brazil will be tomorrow night as well. Till that time, though, I've been your host, Insane Leader 13. Thank you very much for joining us, and goodbye.